All right, everyone, let's get started. Today, we're really going to dig into a crucial paper by Isbell and Kreml, and it asks a pretty tough question. Where does our field, language testing, actually stand when it comes to open science? But it's more than that. It's really a challenge for you, the next generation of researchers, and where you're going to take us. So, to really get a grip on where we are now, we've got to look back. It's kind of like a tale of two eras. For a long time, language testing was the leader of the pack, methodologically speaking, in applied linguistics. But now, well, when you look at the open science movement, the data is pretty clear. We've fallen behind the curve. So today is all about understanding that journey and figuring out how we chart a new course forward. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with that tale of two eras, then jump into the current state of play. After that, we'll tackle the barriers and some really valid concerns holding us back, and then make the case for why we absolutely need to catch up. And finally, we'll look at the path forward and talk about what it really means to reclaim that methodological leadership. Right, so let's start with our history. For a long, long time, if other sub-disciplines needed guidance on rigor, on solid quantitative analysis, well, they looked to us. I mean, think about it. Advanced stats techniques like confirmatory factor analysis, Roche modeling, these became popular in our field way before they were being used widely anywhere else in applied linguistics. We really earned a reputation for our sharp critiques and solid, practical advice on construct measurement and validation. Okay, so that was then. But what does being behind the curve on open science actually look like today in practice? Well, the numbers from a recent analysis by Liu and colleagues, they're pretty revealing. Let's take a look. First up, let's just talk about access. Since 2008, in our top journals, Language Testing and Language Assessment Quarterly, only about 14% of empirical studies were published open access. Let that sink in. That's roughly 1 out of every 7 studies. But this is the real kicker. Of all those empirical studies published in that whole time frame, a mere 1% provided open data or analysis code. 1%. For a field that prides itself on rigor, that is a strikingly low figure. And this is where the context really hits home. When you compare us to other subfields, the gap is, well, it's stark. Take a journal like Bilingualism, Language, and Cognition. They had a 29% open access rate in just a recent 2-year period. That's more than double our average. So yeah, we have some significant catching up to do. Okay, so why the lag? Well, this isn't coming from nowhere. It's not just simple resistance or people being stubborn. There are legitimate, really nuanced concerns in our field that we absolutely have to talk about and address. And these reasons range from the super practical stuff, things like test security, confidentiality, the financial interests of the testing industry, to some more scholarly critiques. Things like the risk of data being misused by researchers who don't have that deep contextual knowledge of how it was collected. And hey, even a belief that our current research is already rigorous enough as it is. And this quote from Chappell and Aki really nails that scholarly concern. They say researchers lacking detailed contextual knowledge may be prone to misusing data they did not themselves collect. It's a really serious fear about decontextualized analysis, and it's a point we absolutely have to grapple with as we move forward. So yes, those concerns are valid, but, and this is a big but, Isbell and Kreml argue that the potential upsides, the benefits of open science for our field, are just too significant to ignore. So let's flip the coin and really build the case for why we have to catch up. And we can break this argument down into 5 key areas. We're talking about reusability of materials, increasing the scrutability and trust in our work, seriously enhancing researcher training for people like you, protecting ourselves against questionable practices, and get this, even driving innovation in the testing industry itself. First up, efficiency. I mean, when we openly share materials, it just stops us from constantly reinventing the wheel, right? The special issue that this paper comes from has some fantastic examples. You've got Pan and Marsden's aptitude tests, Dudley's French vocabulary test, Nishizawa's listening benchmarks. These are all amazing resources that the entire community can now use and build on. Second, let's talk about trust in training. Open data allows for what Brian's called professional scrutiny. It means we can reanalyze findings, we can catch errors, and ultimately build way more trust in our conclusions. And for you as doctoral students, this is just huge. Getting your hands on real-world, sometimes pretty messy data, that's an incredible opportunity to build practical skills that, let's be honest, clean, simulated data just can't teach you. Okay, what about questionable research practices? Well, something like pre-registration, and Burton's 2024 study is a great example of this, is a super powerful tool. You basically formally document your plan, your questions, your hypotheses, your methods before you conduct the study. By timestamping your plan before you even see the data, you protect yourself against harking, hypothesizing after the results are known. It just makes our science so much more robust. Here's another cool innovation: transparent peer review. They actually piloted this in the special issue. So after a normal double-blind review, if everyone agrees, the entire review history, the reviews, the editor's decision, the author's response, all of it gets published as a supplement to the article. It's anonymized, of course. But this not only makes the whole process more rigorous, it creates this incredible training tool for early career scholars who are learning how to write and respond to peer reviews. So, look, despite all the challenges, despite the fact that we're lagging behind, there is actually a lot of reason to be optimistic. A really clear path forward is starting to emerge. And it's so important to see where this momentum is coming from, because it's not just a top-down thing. The push for change is coming from early career researchers, people just like you. It's coming from our awesome colleagues over in second language acquisition who've really been leading the charge on this. And it's even coming from major industry players. ETS, Duolingo, the British Council are all getting on board. So what can we do to get back ahead of the curve? Isabel and Kreml lay out 3 key steps. First, we need to champion equitable open access publishing. Second, we've got to push for industry to commit to open resources. Imagine having open practice tests for research. And third, we as researchers need to adopt a more incremental mindset, one where replication isn't just this thing we could do, but is seen as a core, crucial part of the scientific process. And all of this brings us to the final point, the closing argument. Embracing open science, it's not just about playing catch-up with other fields, it's about setting ourselves up to lead again, but this time in a new, more transparent, and more collaborative way. And for me, this is maybe the most important takeaway of all. As the authors argue, the greater scrutability that open science offers is particularly important for advancing justice in the use of language tests. Why? Because when researchers and the public can more effectively and thoroughly reason through available evidence, we make better, fairer decisions. It's that simple. So here's the bottom line. The next generation is here. That's you. The conversation is no longer about if we should adopt these practices. It's about how we're going to do it. So the question I want to leave you with is this: how are you going to lead the way?